You are listening to the Interview Podcast,
where we interview the real you.
We discover our guests' passions, skills, dreams, and wisdom they've learned along the way.
Get ready for some friendly banter,
Controversial hot takes.
Christian pickup lines, and riveting conversations.
Let's dive in.
Oh, are we diving in? All right, we are diving in. Welcome, everybody. Sorry, guys, didn't have my music cued because I didn't have my headphones on, so a little late start there.
That's funny, Jen.
But I was like, wait, are we ready
diving?
to start?
Because we're diving.
We are diving in.
Yeah.
Very slowly, but welcome in, guys. Welcome to another episode
More of a
of the
belly flop
Interview
than a
Podcast.
dive. Sorry.
It's definitely not the Olympics. The Olympic, well, it is. When they stand on that stand for 100 years before they actually dive. That's me diving into this podcast. But we're here, guys. That's what matters. And we're excited to have another episode with an awesome guest. But before we get started, as per usual, we have to thank our incredible sponsor for this episode. Derek, give a shout out to what's going on for our sponsor this episode.
You're right. And we really should. We should mix it up sometime and just do something completely out of whack. Like we should give them a pickup line now or something, Jen. Because they're always expecting the sponsor.
True.
You know?
So, as per usual, let's talk about how to find love.
Yeah. You know what we do? We help
At the
people
beginning
find
of every
love.
episode.
Psych. But anyway, till we do that,
Yeah.
so we want to give a big shout out to Frank Thiessen from Canada. He's a good friend of mine, ours, more as of recent, honestly. It's pretty amazing. He's up from Canada. And just want to give a big shout out to him. And there's also a conference going on up there, vertical conference. We just came through the one here in North Carolina. Incredible. A bunch of them came down for it. That group from Canada was just such a blessing. Brought a lot of life from up north.
There's some Canada.
Good folk. Good folk up north there.
Who knew Canada had good people? I'm just kidding. I just thought it was Tim Hortons and a lot of border crossing issues.
Mounties. I thought it was all Mounties up there. But anyway, just want to give a big shout out. Thank you, Frank, for sponsoring this episode. You are the man. I appreciate you so much. If you're from Canada, if you're a part of our international crowd, they're international fam.
All the Canadians.
You know, the Inner Circle International.
Yeah.
There is a vertical conference, the first time in Wellesley, Ontario, March 20 through 22 in 2025. So definitely check that out. Check out revivalistministries.com for more info there. And definitely check that out. So we just came through the one in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Just want to give a huge shout out. Anything that Revivalist does is it's incredibly done well. If you're looking for a place to plug in spiritual growth.
As youth. I don't know if I think you mentioned that. Maybe
I should have mentioned
it's
age. 14 to 30.
There's going to be some middle-aged moms and dads wanting to go to this event.
You're a 50-year-old middle-aged
youth,
man.
Guys. This is a youth conference for singles, right? Mostly
Generally,
singles.
yes.
Yeah.
If you're a youth sponsor or something, there is a place for you. We encourage that as well. But anyway, so just wanted to give a big shout out for that. And thank you, Frank. We love you. And I'm also wearing the shirt. We just had tent meetings up there. If you're on YouTube, we had tent meetings up there in Canada. And just to see the involvement of the youth and Frank and a bunch of those guys, Donnie and them. Now that I'm name dropping, Mackenzie, Bethany, all of them.
He's got to list
Elena,
the entire church.
It's just Dwayne. They're awesome. But anyway, so big shout out to them. So here we go.
Thanks, Derek, for that.
You.
Thanks, Frank. We really appreciate sponsorship.
Love you, Frank.
All right, guys, we're going to dive into our episode today, and we're pretty excited about it.
Yes.
Because we have someone on the podcast today who has wanted to be on for a while and has prepared for this moment.
Oh, yeah.
And that we don't believe it's an accident that she's on. It's crazy how God can work in what we think is super last minute, like, all of a sudden, let's, have you on, a day before the episode, but yet it lines up.
We're pretty good at last minute, if you haven't noticed.
If you guys think we plan the episodes that months in advance,
you wish.
You're tripping.
It's
because
way fresher than that.
But it's cool because God often can still work in those things that he knew way ahead of time, but we just finally caught up with him.
We try to be ahead, but it's tough.
So thankfully he's got our backs in that.
Praise
but
God.
Anyway, I'll introduce our guest. We have Shanea Tingling on the podcast today. Let's go, Shanea.
Your favorite Jamaican.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that actually where you're from? I was going to ask, where you're originally from, and then where do you currently live?
I was born and raised in Jamaica for 10 years, and then I moved to the U.S. in 2014, and I now live in Columbus, North Carolina.
Let's go.
6 minutes away from here.
And she lives very close to the studio. She goes to church, youth group, youth conferences, all the things with Derek and I. And we've gotten to know her the past. And you moved how many years ago to Columbus? Because before this, you lived in the States, but you were not in this area.
3 years in October.
Was it? Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
So I met Shanea at a Women of Joy conference, or I met her at our church because she moved in with one of our friends here has a roommate here with Emery. Yes. If any of you that listen to our podcast, But her and I went to a conference with 2 other girls, a women's conference. And the first night we were out to dinner and we were talking about ages or whatever. And I thought Shanea, I didn't know her well. And I thought she was probably like maybe 26 or 7.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, wait, how old are you? And she was like, oh, yeah, I'm 18. Oh. Were you 17? I forget.
I was 18.
18 years old.
The kids today.
I was so shocked because she
younger.
carried herself so much older than that, more mature, and had a lot of wisdom even at 18. And now that's 3 years ago. You're 21 now. And so there's been a lot of life lived in the last 3 years.
Oh, my
lot
word.
of growth that's happened in Chenet, and a lot of encouragement that she has done to a lot of people in our church and youth group. And so her being on the podcast and being able to share a little bit of what she's learned in her relationship with God is going to be really special.
Yes.
And so, Chenet, you're a blessing. You're a huge encouragement. You bring a lot of life, and the way that you just you're very vulnerable and open about things that you're going through because you care about going to the next step with God. And that's an example to so many of us, myself included, of how to live like the Christian walk, that we don't have to be alone and walking through things, but like, hey, this is where I'm at and let's grow. So anyway, I don't know, Derek, do you want to say anything before we kind of jump into what we want to talk about today?
We are happy to have you here, Shanea. Your personality is, gives such life, and the life of Christ shines through in you. So we're excited about today.
For sure.
Yep.
So something that when I was thinking about having Shanea on the podcast and like what would be a good thing to kind of jump into, there was the concept of what does it look like to say yes to God? What does it look like to give him your yes? To say, hey, I'm here, I'm willing to do whatever it is you have for me, even if I don't know what that's going to mean, even if I don't know the outcome of what that yes is going to bring. And I think Shanea has done a very good job at diving into a lot of things in her life with the Lord that are scary and no idea what the outcome is going to be. No guarantee of it working, but knowing that the call God has placed on your life is what you're going to follow. And so we just want to talk a little bit about that, Shanea, and want you to share some of the things you've learned and even some of the things you've done that you've said yes to God. And like, whenever you're like, why are you asking me to do this? And how do I learn to trust you in the unknowns? So speak a little to that. I don't know, wherever you want to start.
For sure. Saying yes to God is honestly the most scariest thing that anybody can walk through. Because like you said, you don't know what it looks like and it's uncomfortable. Like, you're not happy when you're saying yes to God because it's like, okay, God, I want to do this for you, but practically, this does not make sense. And I've had to learn that surrendering my heart to God wholeheartedly is the only thing that's going to get me through it, because doing it your own way and the world's way does not work because it causes pain and you're in a cycle over and over and over again. And it's like, okay, how do I get out of this? And God is like, I need you to trust me. And it's like, okay, how do I trust you when I can't trust the people around me? And then he reminds you, I'm not the people around you. I am not like them. I am so much bigger and better. And I love you. And so I need you to trust me. And just taking that, just holding, like, it reminds me of the woman that just needed to touch the hem of his garment. It's like she, for 10 years or 12 years, I can't remember, she didn't know what to do. She went to all the worldly things to try and get help and still couldn't get help. And the second that she decided, I'm going to trust God, boom, she was healed.
Right.
Wow. And it was her faith.
That's
her faith
incredible.
that made her whole, because she believed wholeheartedly that God had the power in him to touch her body and heal her. And because of that, he healed her. It was really incredible.
Do you have some specific examples, Shanea, of like I know we talk about surrender and giving God your yes, but like also how, I know it's going to look different for every person, but like what crossroads have you came to in your life where you made that decision to be uncomfortable, I guess, where it's like you could have said no, but you said yes. Do you have some examples or some practical things that you could like share?
Yes. So back in January, I was working at Granite for like a year and a half, and I just felt God was telling me it was time to leave. I was like, I don't have anything lined up, but you want me to leave. And so I wrestled and wrestled and wrestled. And then it came to a point, it's like, you're either going to trust me or you're going to be stuck in pain and all this. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to do it. I don't know what it looks like, but I know you're going to provide something. And by the grace of God, another job came up like before I quit at Granite. And I was like, okay, we're going to do it.
And did you give your notice to Granite before you knew of anything coming up? Or did you see this? You knew that was going to happen, but you had a job opportunity that had popped up that you could probably get into. Okay.
Yes. Okay. And so I was like, okay, I am just going to run with this and just do it. And so I quit, and then like I had 2 more weeks there left, and I felt so uncomfortable. I was like, okay, what if this is a big mistake? Like, I don't know what this looks like because I've been with this place for so long, and that's all I've known. That's where I was comfortable.
Yeah.
And then I started this new job, and then 3 weeks later, I was fired. Out of the blue.
And you're like, Lord, I'm trying to figure this out.
I was like,
I like out of the blue.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, and I still don't know to this day why I was actually fired.
And that was what you thought was the answer to your yes.
Yeah.
Like, you're saying yes to God and leaving. He gave you this job, and then that got taken out from under you.
A roller coaster.
God, I was following your instructions, and then I was like, okay, was I actually doing the right thing? And going down that rabbit hole.
I'm sure the questions were rolling.
Oh, my word. Yeah. And I was like, I don't have a job. I have bills to pay. Like, what am I supposed to do? And then God was like, I'm calling you into a season of serving. And I'm like, what do you mean?
What you talking about, Willis?
Serving with what money?
Yes.
Like, you see these bills. Yeah. And he was like, I'm calling you into a season of serving. Okay. And I'm going to take care of whatever I need to take care of, but I need your yes. And I was like, you know what? I came to the point where I was literally on my knees, and I was like, God, I want to trust you. You're going to have to help me.
Yeah.
Because my flesh doesn't want to do this. I was like searching like all the time on my phone, on my laptop. I was like, jobs.
Yeah.
And everything that I applied to, no. And I was like, jobs that I was qualified for.
Yeah, that you should have gotten.
Yes. And it was just like, nope. And I was like,
God's like, keep trying. Nope.
My word. And then it was like, I was in a season where I was helping working moms. Like I was cleaning, I was babysitting, just like being a willing vessel to work with whoever, however, and I didn't consider it work. Like I actually truly enjoyed being somebody that could help take care of somebody else. Like it didn't seem like a job to me. And through that, I learned a lot about serving and the calling of serving on my life. And so it was a very awesome but terrifying season. And then I got to a point where it was like miracles were happening because I was like, I literally have $0 in my bank account, but my bills were being paid. And I was just like,
wow.
Whoa. And I was like, I remember journaling these prayers like, God, I don't know how I can do this, but I know you can. That bill was paid.
No way.
Right after I prayed that prayer. And I was just like, oh my word. Like you are taking care of me in this. And so the more that I walked through that, the more trust that I gave to God, and the more that I continued to surrender piece by piece by piece, because he wanted my entire heart. And he was like, you're going to be so uncomfortable, but you're going to make it out of this. And from March all the way to now, I am a completely different person than I was back in March. And the growth was amazing to see. And even through all of that, like the trials didn't stop coming. They kept coming. Oh my word.
You're like, hey God, I passed this test. Now let's have some smooth
sailing. Is it getting easier? Yeah.
And then he's like, we're still in rough waters, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Man. And then I finally applied to another job, daycare job, and it actually worked out great. I was like, okay, I'm going to get back with kids. Yeah, this is what I want to do. And then for months, I didn't hear anything back. Like, I got the job, but like all the other things that needed to be done, didn't hear anything back. And I was like, what am I supposed to do? And people were like, oh, did you start your job yet? And I was like, no, I'm just waiting on my background check. And through that, I that time that I was actually supposed to start, it didn't work out because I went on a mission trip. Like God, like opened those doors for me to go to New Mexico, and that is a whole nother crazy story.
That was really crazy.
Oh my word. I knew I wanted to go on mission trips, but like I kind of like placed it in the back of my head. I was like, practically that doesn't make sense because you need money.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like you're in a season of trusting God just for one bill to the next, much less having money to go on a trip.
And so my thoughts were, okay, if you're struggling to pay this bill, how are you going to go on a mission trip? And like I prayed and I was like, okay, God, you're going to have to make this happen. Like I have all these fears, but I know if you want me here, you will work it all out. And so Adventures in Missions like popped up all over stuff out of the blue just by me like talking about missions. And then one thing led to another. And then I found this women's ministry called Beauty for Ashes. And then I started researching, and my group leader was the one that interviewed me. Like she was like, I saw you wanted information. Can I help you with anything? And I was like, nah. And for like 10 minutes, I was like, I ain't got nothing. And then I had a question. Out of the blue, I had a question. And so I texted her that question, and she was like, can I actually call you? And I was like, sure. We talked on the phone for an hour.
Nice.
I never met this lady before.
No. And she was like, I feel like I already know you. And I was telling her my fears, my story. She told me hers. And she was like, can I actually pray for you? And I was like, yeah, sure. So as she was praying, I can literally feel like a fire go up from my stomach into my chest. And my hands were shaking. And I was like, Bethany, here's what's happening. And she was like, that is the Holy Spirit. And she was like, I want you to take the weekend, pray about this trip, seek wise counseling, ask God, because he will make a way. And she was like, he's a pair of bills. Like, all these things. It was just like,
let's go.
Bro, what?
Yeah.
And then I took that entire weekend and I prayed and I asked God just for confirmation and wise counsel. And everyone that I talked to, they were like, you've convinced me. And on Sunday, God gave me all of those confirmations that I asked him. And I was just like, I'm going on this trip, regardless of what it looks like.
Signing up. I love it.
And then, like, my biggest fear was having the money for it. And it was like, okay, how am I going to do this? And one of the lies was, like, nobody's going to help you. And it was one of those things is I could either believe that lie or trust that God was going to take care of everything. And so I gave God my yes. I know he was going to do it. And so I trusted him. And that Sunday, we raised the money and more for me to go on this mission trip and even more mission trips in the future. And so it's like when you give God your yes, he will bless you for that because he just wants your obedience. And so
let's go back to that Sunday real quick that you just talked about because it was pretty incredible. I wasn't there, but I saw it on the live stream. But you were planning on, you needed money for this trip and you got past the live. People wouldn't want to help you. You were going to ask for help, but were you going to do a fundraiser meal?
Yes.
The following Sunday, you were going to do a meal to raise money for this trip, right? Well, then our pastor asked you to come on stage that Sunday because he was preaching a message on faith.
Yes.
And let's talk about a time where you knew you were going to do something for the Lord, or that he was asking and you were going to do it, but you didn't really know how you were going to do it. And he had you on stage and he asked you a question. He said, do you know you're going to go on this trip? And you're like, I know I'm going. I know I'm going. Because God had told you, put that on your heart to go. You didn't know how. You didn't question it. You were just like, I'm going. Like, and now we'll figure out how to make it happen, but I'm going. And you were so confident in that. And it was so inspiring. And then tell what happened on the stage, what he put on the screen, and how much time it took.
Oh, yeah. So he created a Slido. I didn't know he was going to do all that. He was just like...
Oh, God's
working. He had all this done prior to the service, right?
Like, he had called me the Saturday before, and he was like, hey, I know you really want to do a fundraiser. Yeah. If we have to, we will do it. But we're going to switch things up. He's like, I'm just going to call you on stage and let God do whatever. And I was like, okay, that's
fine. We'll see how it goes.
And so he called me up and he just like poured into me and just like encouraged me. And I did not know he was creating a Slido. So I go back. He was like, go sit down. And so I sat down, and then all of a sudden he had a Slido up and different like dollar amounts
Yeah.
and
that people could donate in real time.
Yeah, in real time.
What if God is laying a certain amount on your heart?
Yeah.
Like, slide whichever one you're going to give. And I sat there, and all of us, as soon as he said that, the slides were literally going
rolling.
crazy. And I was like, oh, I started crying.
Yeah.
I was so overwhelmed by like
Ugh.
the love of my church,
Yeah.
and just God like blew me out of what I was like, oh my word. And then Lou was like, okay, stop. We raised it.
Yeah. Stop it. You
Literally,
money.
you raised like
Your deep
triple the
pockets.
amount within
Are you serious?
2 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh my
because I
goodness.
watched it on the live stream too, and it was just like immediately like 1,000, another 1,000.
No
and
way.
like people
It
just being
was
like, "We're
That's
in this.
insane.
Crazy.
We believe in
Praise
this."
the Lord.
Yes.
And so what did that feel like for you to see that? Like obviously you'd given God your yes, you've seen him be faithful, but in that moment, seeing him work for you through people, what did you feel in that moment? Like towards God and your view of him?
It was so overwhelming because it was like, oh my word, this is actually happening. Like, you hear about, miracles like this happening, but to actually see it in real time, that was amazing to see that, when he cares about his children and when he wants you to do something, he opens every single door, regardless of like how how impossible it looks to humanly eyes. He works everything out for the good of his children and for the good of his kingdom. And like, that was so amazing to see that, he called me to something. I said yes to it, and he blessed that in so many ways. Like, I didn't have to stress about anything but going out and speaking and doing what he called me to do. Like, the doors that were opened because of my yes to that mission trip is amazing. Like, what happened in New Mexico, and even after that, like spiritually within me, it would not have happened if I had said no to God.
That's what's so crazy is like the so many times we're like, man, God, I don't know if I can trust you. I don't know. I haven't seen you work. I haven't had things to go back to say, oh yeah, God will do this, so I can trust him. And often it's like we blame that on God. We're like, why have you not shown me these things? But often we can go back and say, well, we never actually obeyed or stepped out in obedience or said, God, I'm in.
Yes.
To where it actually gave him the opportunity to show his power. And so I think that he's looking for willing people to say, God, I actually am all in. And by doing that, it's like you don't have a backup plan. Like you step out and say, because that's what he sees. When he sees like, wow, she is truly trusting me. There's nothing to fall back on.
Yeah.
And then he knows your heart. He knows that this is like you're obeying. And to see that and to hear that that's what you experienced, but yet you would have no idea all this was going to happen when you originally committed to this. Like you had to do it without seeing the outcome.
You had to walk by faith, not by sight.
You had to say that yes. And that's what's, I think, the hardest thing for me in my walk of faith is like, yeah, I say I have faith in God, and I do. I know I do. Like I believe that. I know he can do anything. But when it actually comes down to you having to take steps to put yourself on the line to prove that to yourself, like, do I actually trust him? I think that's where it's so easy for me to try to find something humanly to fall back on to make sure, okay, well, if he doesn't come through, I could do this, or I could go back to that, or I could ask this person. It's like I create all of these alternate plans in my head because I don't know if I really believe he's going to come through. And that's where I'm like hearing your journey and your story. It's a challenge to me because I realize how maybe little I do trust God. Like I say I do, of course. I believe in him. But my actions, your behavior is a language. Your behavior tells you what you actually believe. Yeah. And so I'm in a season 2 right now where I'm, kind of stepping out and following what he's asking me to do, and I have no idea what's next. And it's terrifying. But it puts you in this position of having to say, God, like, you're all I have. And you're the only one that can give me this answer. And then you allow him to work when you maybe don't see the result. And it's like, that's really what shows you how much trust you have in God and how much faith whenever you're in that position and you're like really doubting.
Oh, 100%. When you lay aside your selfishness and yourself and let God come in, the doors that will open, it is amazing to see when you lay down your life and be like, okay, God, I know this is not about me. This has never been about me. And when he comes in, the doors, he blesses that when you can lay everything down and be like, God, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I know you can.
Yeah.
When you give him back the power that he originally has, he blesses that in ways that you can never imagine. It'd be the random person like in a drive-thru, it'd be like, hey, I feel like God is telling me to give you this.
Yeah.
And that's your bill that you need. Or I feel like God wants me to pay for your meal. That's the first food that you've had in a day. Like when you recognize that, God is the one above your life and you give him back that power in your life, he opens so many doors.
Yeah.
And so like my response to that would be like, give God back the control in your life. Because he will open all the doors. Because he already knows that you were going to walk through that. He just wants to see how you're going to react in it. Yeah. And if you give him back, the respect and the love and be like, okay, God, I surrender. I'm laying it all down. He will open doors that you will never would have imagined that could open.
Shanea, that's wild. I didn't know all the details of all that, and just hearing all that blows me away. And an aspect of that story that I love so much is like you had no idea that our pastor was going to do any of that, and it was so unconventional probably, and so different. And I think that's what God loves to do too. Like you think, oh, maybe I'll get paid maybe I'll get enough money to go on the mission trip, but here he did 2 or 3 times that amount, and he did it in a way that brings him all the more glory.
Yeah,
And I think that is something of like, God is going to use other people. He's going to speak to other people on your behalf.
For
like
sure.
It's your obedience and then he also is going to use other people, which strengthens their faith too in their journey because they said yes, or they were obedient, or a little was obedient to what God led him to do. And so I think I think what you said is so key. God wants to show up so much more than we realize, but there is a trust that you have to have in him. There's an obedience that you have to take. Is it scary? Yeah. But if it ain't scary, like, is it worth its salt? Is it worth going after?
That's good.
If you ain't nervous, if it ain't scary, is it worth it?
If you're not being knocked down by the world, then you're not in the right place.
Tell you what.
And I think the saying that like it also, it sounds great to hear these stories about these big moments of saying yes to God. But I think the value or the training to learn how to just say yes comes from the small things. It comes from starting in the day-to-day things of the giving God your yes. That means like when you're in the drive-through line and you get an urge to pay for the person in front of you, or you're out in the store and you have this urge to, maybe go pray for that person, or just give them a word of encouragement. I think it's those little things of you saying, okay, God, like, I don't know why you're asking me to do this, and I don't want to do this, or maybe I don't know what the outcome's going to be, but like, I'm going to say yes. I'm going to be obedient. I think the more we do that, it trains us to learn how to do that more naturally. That we just say, like, that's what we do now. We're it's like anything you do, the more you do it, the better you get at it. And I think also God sees that as he can trust you with more. He can entrust you. He's like, you're stewarding what I'm giving you well. And I know that now, like, you're building up this connection with me and this obedience to me, which also builds trust, that he can give you more and more of these things that he's asking you to say yes to. And you're like, okay, this is way bigger than, giving someone a compliment at Walmart now. Like, you're getting the big league stuff, but because you have allowed yourself to build that trust little by little, those times when then all of a sudden it becomes this big thing of like, I'm asking you to leave your job without knowing what you're doing next. I'm asking you to commit to a mission trip without having the money for it. When those times come up, then you have built and trained your mind and your heart, and your obedience to God is part of who you are. So for people out there that think, well, I don't even know how to say yes to God. I don't even know what that looks like. Like, I'm not going to go do something huge. It's like, start with listening to the still small voice every day.
Yeah.
Start with saying in the morning when you wake up, God, what do you want me to do right now? Or when you're out and about in public. That's when I hear it the most, is like, I feel like he's testing me of like, hey, Jen, just the other day, so I failed the test because I felt like I was at our Food Lion in Columbus, which I see those people all the time because I shop there all the time. And there was a lady standing outside, and she was having a smoke break or whatever. And I've seen her many times, but I walked to my car, and I just like, for some reason, I turned around and I looked at her, and I was like, why don't you go pray for her? Like, just go do that. And I was like, no, I do not want to do that.
I don't want to inhale smoke.
And I was like, it wasn't even that. I don't care about the smoke.
Just
I
one
was
of those
like,
classic excuses.
It was just like this. That was in me of like, I'm in a hurry. I don't want it to be awkward. All those things you know that you tell yourself.
Yeah.
And so I was unloading my groceries. I'm like, okay, God, I'm trying to get up enough courage. But I waited a long, like on purpose. I was kind of like, and then by the time I finally got everything done, put my cart back, he hauled around. I looked back and she was gone. She, I guess, back in the store. And so that was me. I was like, oh, well, good. Like, it wasn't my fault. Like, I tried.
Not going to go chase her down.
But
it'd be weird.
To be honest, like, I don't know if I was going to do it anyway. Yeah. Like, I was, nervous about it. It was that flesh thing coming in of what will she think and all that. But yet, to me, I had to confess, to God and say, I'm sorry. Like, I was convicted that I should have done that. Like, I missed a blessing and she missed a blessing by me not saying yes. And so, not that God's going to punish me and never give me other opportunities, but those are the things that I want to do better at in the day-to-day of God. Like, what do you want me to say yes to? Mm-hmm. And then I think he'll build on that and he'll build your faith.
Oh, 100%.
So
100%. And I had to think, like, before I even got to Foothills, like, I would not imagine seeing myself doing the things that I'm doing now. And just months ago, like, praying over people at a conference, like, was not in my book, because I'm like, okay, God sent somebody to me.
Yeah.
Let them pray over me.
I need that prayer.
Like, minister to me, yeah.
Don't go ask me to pray for that person, because I really don't want you, because, like, what? Yeah, awkward. No.
Yeah. But yeah, kind of.
Yeah, and so, no, this weekend, like, God really gave me an opportunity to go out and intercede and pray for people. And that felt so natural. Like, that's what we were created for. Like, people weren't supposed to suffer alone. They're supposed to have community. Mm-hmm. And it's like exercising, like, your spiritual gifts. Like, if you're not actively doing it, how are you supposed to get better at it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like, if you're not using your hand's going to be useless. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're not doing the things that you're supposed to do, it's not going to work. And that goes with, like, exercising your faith.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not actively walking out in that, it's going to be pointless.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not going to grow.
Right.
And you bring up a good point with that is in this whole journey of faith in general, saying yes to God, like, I think it's very important to have people in your life walking alongside you, mentors, having discipleship happen, that have people to go to help build your faith, encourage you, speak into you. That's what I think God created people for, is community.
Oh, 100%.
For the children of God to come together and push each other in their faith, push each other to Jesus, and give encouragement when your faith feels weak. Like, let's, lift each other up. When someone's really weak in their faith, remind them of who God is and what he's done. And you've had that quite a bit in your life. Like, you've been very good at going to people and allowing them to pour into you. And do you feel like that's had a big impact on your growth and spiritual growth and even your ability to trust God more?
Yes. So I grew up in a culture where, like, going and being vulnerable and telling people your business was frowned upon. Like, you don't tell people and so, like, I grew up, like, holding a lot of those things inside, not knowing how to talk about it. And then so once I came to Foothills and just saw how open and family oriented the church was, and how random people would come up to me and, like, intently ask me how I was doing and sit there and listen and speak into me, that kind of pushed me to be like, oh, there's people that care about what I'm going through. And the more that I allowed myself to be vulnerable, the more God healed, and the more, like, our relationship grew, and, like, the people around me and I's relationship grew. So, like, the more you put yourself in a position to be vulnerable, God also blesses that, because you got to remember, he's hurting with you. When you're hurting, he's hurting with you, and he doesn't want you to do it alone. And so he sends specific people in your life to speak into that, to cry with you, to mourn with you. We're supposed to carry each other's burdens. So if we're not putting ourselves in community, if we don't have community, how can we carry someone else's burden? How can they carry our burden?
That's huge. And you've now, because of your willingness to be vulnerable and to allow people to pour into you and grow and stretch yourself and be uncomfortable, now, like, you have done such a great job at being that for people, whether you know it or not, or whether it's in that capacity of, oh, I'm a mentor, I'm discipling people. You are able to sense things going on in other people that they need, or encourage them, or give advice, or if people come to you and say, hey, help me like on my journey, you've been able to do that to others, even while you're still on the process yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not like any of us ever arrive.
Right.
We're all in this together. But what's cool is as you're learning and growing in your faith, you can walk alongside the next person beside you and pour into them what you've been learning, what God's speaking to you. And because you're being obedient to him by saying yes, God, it's like, I know I can trust Shanea. Like, I can give Shanea a word for this person because I know she's going to say yes to that. I know she's going to steward that well and go over, and she's going to talk to them and pray over them. So I believe there's power, and the Holy Spirit is able to be used and work through you because of your willingness to say, like, God, I'm here, use me. And then you obey that. And he's like, man, the amount of blessing that you are to people and the words that you have for them that they're like, how did she know that? Like, how does she know to pray into that? Or how does she know to speak that over me? It's just what I needed. And that's huge. And so for everybody that's listening, like, you can not only be vulnerable and be mentored and be discipled, but you can do that to others. Like, before you feel like you're capable or adequate to do it, you can do it.
Yeah.
And if we're all doing that with each other in our Christian walk, in our churches, in our communities, like, just imagine like how powerful the church would be.
Oh yeah. And I think a big thing is like people honestly don't overthink it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the kindest, the first word that comes to your mind that's kind and loving.
Yeah.
That is from the Holy Spirit. Speak it. Don't overthink it. Don't think it has to be like this big thing. Like, take the pressure off yourself. Like, God can use literally one word to bless somebody. Like, don't overthink it. And that's a big thing. In like our culture, we think it has to be this big, like, heavy loaded spiritual moment, and it could literally be the word joy. And that is something that somebody
and it resonates
needs.
with their spirit and literally changes their entire outlook or whatever they're going through.
For sure.
Right. I totally agree with you. I think we overthink it a lot. And something I've been trying to really put into practice with giving God your yes is, so when it comes to like praying about things, especially like, okay, if there's for anything for healing. So I've been trying to be super intentional with, okay, not just saying, hey, I'll keep you in prayer for that. I'll keep you in prayer for that, but to actually stop in the moment and like pray for them. And which is cool because there's a story that happened with me and Shanea at Vertical. That's
I don't
about
even know
that.
about this.
Oh, you don't? Oh, that's
Tell
cool.
the story.
Sure. And chime in, please. But anyway, that was kind of my mindset the last couple of weeks of like, okay, well, and especially over Vertical time where you're around a lot of people, and there's oftentimes like, oh man, my back kind of hurts, or like I have a headache, or Shanea lost her voice or whatever, just stuff like that. So
Shanea, you talk too much,
which is insane. Shanea is just this quiet, meek little. She doesn't talk loud. So anyway, so I was like really trying to be like, Lord, I want to intentionally take time, because how cool is it if God sees his kids down there like taking a moment in a busy setting to like, you know what, they're praying to me because they want me to answer, they want me to visit, and I'm just like,
chills.
we just need to do that more. So. Anyway, so we were there talking, just chatting, and then Shanea had pretty much lost her voice. Like, it was pretty rough. It was pretty rough. Like, it was very...
That's a miserable feeling. You feel like claustrophobic in your own body when you can't communicate. Yeah.
Right, exactly. It felt like a strain, and like, like she was it was the first day there, so it was all hype and everything, and so we were just like, it was like 3 or 4 of us there, and she was like, yeah, I lost voice. I was like, hey, we could pray for that. Why don't we just right now, let's just pray for it. And so we just took like 30 seconds, not even. I was like, we were just like, Lord, would you touch Shanea's voice? Would you restore it? Would your will be accomplished? And would you be brought glory? And so then we started talking, and it was in
less than 5 minutes.
Less than a minute.
Yeah.
Like,
I was drinking hot tea, and so my glasses were fogging up, and Shiloh was like, your glasses are foggy. And then she was like, actually, it'd be really weird if your voice came back right now. And I said something, and my voice is back.
No lie.
I was like, oh my word, my voice is back. And I was like freaking out, and everybody around me were like,
wait a minute,
your voice is back. Like, it was just like,
that's
boom.
insane.
Yeah. Like, so saying yes to God and praying for somebody else, boom, God did that right there. Like, how cool is that?
It was one of the most on-the-spot things I've ever seen, because like it was so noticeable, because it's a voice. Like she was strained.
You knew exactly how it sounded before it was healed.
Whisper, and then all of a sudden she had power, and it was just like it blew us all away. I mean, and it didn't blow us away, but yet it did, because it was all right there. So anyway, so it's like,
dude,
guys,
that's so cool to hear.
Yeah.
What a great story. It's like, imagine all the things that we are not experiencing
Yep.
and that we're denying God the opportunity to do because we're just like, we're not going to go
a little
there.
uncomfortable. It's a public setting.
We're not going to do it. We're like, it's not important to you. It's just a voice. Let's not pray.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like he's like, guys, I have so many things that I want to pour out onto you and blessings.
You step out.
Like, I need you guys to be in.
Yeah,
I need you to be on board with me.
I need your yes.
Yes.
I want your yes. Exactly.
Lots of yeses. That's what we need to be saying.
So with all
really
that
cool.
being said, take time, guys, to like be intentional, like in those little moments, and like you said, it's going to lead to bigger things too. Because I think he builds your faith in those moments that, that he flows through you and wants to use you, and it's so humbling because it's like obviously it's nothing I did; it's all him, and your just obedience with that when he rewards that, you're so humbled by him choosing to like work through you and work through your yes. Like it is such a humbling, awesome thing to experience. And so it's like, I want to keep going in that. So if you're out at a restaurant, if you're at a volleyball tournament, if you're wherever you are, if someone says they have an ailment, if someone says something, like literally take 30 seconds, bow your heads, pray for it, and watch what God will do. So
amen.
Go get it.
Woo!
Yes.
Okay,
So,
well, Shanea, is there anything else that you want to share or something that
Incredible.
God's laid on your heart or that you want, to leave with the people that'll be listening to this? I'm really putting that on you.
No. I have it.
Take your time.
The words
Take
are
your time.
coming. I shared this verse. There is no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus. Give yourself grace. Don't pressure yourself. Like, God understands. He knows what you can handle. He's right there with you. Like, allow him to walk through that with you. Because he knows how hard it is to say yes in the everyday busy lives. But he just wants us to try. Trying is all that matters to God. Just a little bit. A little bit. And he can take with that and run with it. And he just wants the little bit. So with all the blabbering I'm saying, just the little bit. Until God can grow that into bigger and bigger. Just let the little things. Don't pressure yourself. Don't overdo it.
Yeah.
Don't overthink it. Just be with him. That's all he wants.
Okay.
Love it. Baby steps towards
Got me
God.
emotional with that.
Baby steps towards God. Leads to big steps.
Yeah. Thanks, Shanea, for sharing that.
Oh my goodness. It's
and
fantastic.
for all that you shared. And there's obviously so much more. And you can never put someone's experiences in life into small little podcasts. But it's cool to hear what you did share. And I think it's going to encourage people. And it's good for me to hear. Like, the things that you're sharing is powerful for the season I'm walking in. So I appreciate that. And you very much. So, yeah.
You're going to walk out of this. Trust me.
Yeah.
Word.
You wouldn't be walking in it if God didn't know you couldn't handle it.
Ooh.
Sometimes I'm like,
Bars.
I think he has way more faith in me than I do.
Well,
like,
let's
God,
be honest. He probably does. I mean, in the best way possible.
Honestly,
like,
he has.
He says he won't give you more than you can bear, and I'm like, you just did.
You
I'm
just
like,
did.
I feel like you did.
I'm drowning.
He knows. I know
He
that he
does.
knows, and that's where it's in the moments of the hard times and even pain or difficult things that you often hear from him the most, because distractions are kind of gone. You need him more. And I don't always want to only come close to God when you need him, because it feels like a cop out. We need him every day.
for sure.
But there's a very special there's special connection and moments with God in the times when you're fighting through things and you are struggling that you don't always get when you're on the mountaintop. And so that's why I think there's so much value in both seasons and trying to not just push them away, but see what does God have for me right where you're at. So for whoever that's for.
And be honest. That's another thing that just came to my mind.
Ooh, that's good.
Be honest with him.
Like, that's good.
He already knows what you're thinking and what you're feeling, like what you're saying in your head. Like, he already knows. Tell him out loud. Write it down. And he takes it. He doesn't want you to run from your feelings. Like, he gave you feelings to feel it. Don't sit in it.
Yeah.
Feel it. Be honest with him. And then let him take over and fill those voids.
Come on.
Come on now.
Shanae for president.
Shanae for president.
She could get this world back to a normal thing.
If people want a first black president,
crazy.
Let's go.
I vote Shanae.
Wait,
Yes.
Obama?
Woman president.
First woman president.
I forgot about Obama.
Jamaican.
First Jamaican president. Let's
True.
go.
I don't even know if that's legal, but absolutely.
Well, I am an American citizen.
See,
so.
there you go.
Yeah.
So.
Classic.
Good.
Sign her up.
At least we have that covered.
Get out of here, Kamala. Get out of here, Kamala. Shanea's in town.
Anyway,
there's a new sheriff in town.
Not political here on this podcast, everybody.
Aren't we, though?
Vote for the Lord.
We actually haven't talked about politics.
No, and we probably won't.
Hey, actually, we should do one episode anyway sometime.
Okay.
Sometime.
Beside the point.
That's coming later. It will be. All right. It will happen.
Are we done? Are we good to go? Anything else
I'm
you want to
good to
share?
go.
Okay.
I don't think I can think of anything else.
Okay.
I love it.
All right. Well, thanks again, Chenet. We appreciate you very much.
Yes.
I'm excited for people to hear some of your story and we just bless you in continuing on this journey.
Yes.
Continue saying yes, seeing where it goes. Write your things down. Maybe you'll write a book one day.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's something that I could see in you in writing a book.
Oh,
Let's go.
Oh, and the book's coming out.
So,
the book's coming out.
But I haven't touched it in like a month.
That's
okay. That's all right.
God's writing a story of your life, I think, is very beautiful and is going to impact a lot of people's lives. So thank you for who you are.
Receive that.
Yeah.
Word.
Let's go.
Word.
Okay, well, as we usually end the podcast,
it's a classic.
You can follow the vibe, Chenet. You'll pick up on it if you haven't heard already. But this is the Interview Podcast. I've been Jen.
I have been Derek.
And I've been Shanea.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
Ciao.
Bye.